So, yesterday I saw the reaction from Metatron to this little video to Language Simps Language Review German. And I was a little bit confused because there were quite a few misconceptions and simply, well, not so very right statements in the video. And I thought today, you know what, why not do a reaction myself and correct a few things, you know? As someone that speaks German, and I think as also someone that understands the German language relatively well.
Newsflash, beta males! Every language sounds harsh when you scream in it. Sali und
That is indeed true.
Alles cool in Istanbul. Hört schwätz mehr über de deutsche Sprüch.
It was actually a quite interesting part of this video because he just randomly throws 3 sentences at us, and I only could understand the second one. No clue what this is supposed to be.
Alles cool in Istanbul.
And alles cool in Istanbul is basically just everything alright in Istanbul. What is quite a weird thing to say, considering that Istanbul is not a German city, right? But yeah, it just it rhymes, I guess, right? And I have no freaking clue what this is supposed to be again. Like these were like two foreign languages with one piece of German in the middle.
Otherwise formerly known as Wiener Schnitzel language, West Polish, Tomboy Dutch, BMW language, quarter in the shopping cart language, or Austrian. This is the 6th episode of Language Review, a series where I go through the languages of the world and review them, sort of like a film critic or a video game reviewer, but for languages, specifically from the perspective
what I, by the way, think is actually quite a cool concept for videos.
Of a language learner. I'll discuss who speaks them, their grammar, their difficulty, and tons of other stuff before finally giving them an official Language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale. If you enjoy this video, let me know in the comments which language you'd like me to review next, and without further ado, alle hope. Oh!
Yeah, so he forgot on that scale the highest tier, the Übermensch tier.
I know German. It's that silly sounding language that cowboys speak in Texas. Yeah, around 6,000 people do speak it with a beautiful American accent in Texas, but more people speak taco language than.
So the thing is, 6,000, I mean, there were quite a lot of immigrants to America, right, back in the day, that indeed came from all European countries and of course also from German. And I am surprised that Texas seems to be one of the states where they settled in. Though I have to say that I saw, I think 2 or 3 years ago, where I watched a video about Americans that speak different foreign languages, right? Well, like I think French, Italian, and stuff like that. And there was also a section about German. And it was actually from different states, and none of these people spoke German to a degree that I think you could have any kind of reasonable conversation with them or with each other. So I think it's cool that it's like it still kind of exists there, but it's you know,
German is the 12th most spoken
maybe a really crazy dialect, if you want to call it like that.
Language in the world, and it's the most common native language of our biggest rival, the EU, where over 134 million NPCs speak it, mainly in Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and of course, Mallorca. But no.
I'm really wondering how many people catch that one. He called it Austria, because I think there are still so many people that still don't know that Austria is not Australia. And I think it's funny because I'm 100% sure that there are probably hundreds of people, this video has like several 100,000 views already, that have watched this video and did not catch that one.
And of course, Mallorca.
Yeah, Mallorca is funny because it's the #1 holiday target for the German battle drinkers, if you want to call them like that. Like it's actually quite bad. Like the people of the island, they complained quite a lot about us in the past decade.
But no one learns German for any of these countries, including Germany. Most people study German as a
Yeah.
stepping stone to learn Yiddish, which is basically the same language as German, but it's written backwards with funky letters and bonus vocab from Hebrew. The sad truth is that learning German itself just doesn't really unlock that much DLC for.
To be fair, Yiddish is something that we do not have an education at all. That this has anything to do with German in the first place is actually very much new to me. And yeah, I don't even know where he makes that connection, considering that just in terms of languages, we are, of course, very much influenced from the Germanic language area. Plus, we are using the Latin alphabet. So, yeah, I don't know. I actually would have to do any kind of research about that, how true that is.
Letters and bonus vocab from Hebrew. The sad truth is that learning German itself just doesn't really unlock that much DLC for the average language learner. If you're lucky enough to be able to read, you will unlock content there, but the thing is, most Germans already speak great American,
I don't know. I don't agree on actually both points. First and foremost, I think German is a great language for one very simple reason, that is that it is relatively easy to say exactly what you want to say if you're using German. Where in many languages you have to use like sentences describing things and stuff like that. In German, it is very easy to put just the exact thing that you want to say in just one sentence. And I mean, I think that's great. And I think that's also, because of that, it was also probably one of the reasons why German was quite a common language in science for a pretty long while. Maybe also just because we had quite a lot of scientists in Germany, or at least in the German-speaking language area.
especially in the big cities you'll likely visit. I mean, sure, if you go look for some farm outside of a random town like Tits or Mount Wonk, you're
We also have Fuking, by the way.
bound to run into some old geezer who doesn't know the difference between through, throughout, thorough, and tough. But even he probably speaks the language better than most British people.
So, besides that little slap at the Brits, I think that's a misconception, actually. The Germans speak English particularly well, because I think there's a lot of survivorship bias going on, coming from the quite few people that do actually speak really good English. But at scale, it's not that great. I mean, I don't have a comparison to other countries, right? You would have to do statistics and stuff like that. And then the problem with the many statistics that I know about, and they often compare different things, right? So what I can just say for German is that we have quite a bunch of things going on that make us not that great in speaking English. First and foremost, demographics. We are an old society, and most old people do not speak foreign languages, right? First and foremost. Then you have the whole thing with East Germany, right, which was the Russian-occupied part of Germany in the Cold War, where people that went to school had only Russian as a foreign language, right? And even that, not that great. Like, for example, my parents, and they don't speak Russian anyway. So they don't had any kind of contact with English. So most people, I think, that are older than mid 40s, maybe even older than just 40s, they're already out. That's like 70% of our society, probably maybe more even. I don't know. Like again, our demographic is a fucking mushroom. As you can see here, come on, give me one big picture here, right? It's like most of the people that we have are like in the upper bracket are old people, and most of them just don't speak proper English. Then the next problem is that even in school, English education exists, like we are learning English. It depends, depending on the state. In the Bundesland, depends on the state when it starts. But like, for example, we had like basics of English, I think, already in 4th degree, in 4th grade. And then real English education then started with 5th and 6th grade. The problem is you don't really learn the language, right? You learn like the theory about it. And in the best case, that is enough that you can then start to speak English or whatever broken English you're able to force out of your mouth around 10th grade. And most people are not able to speak English. You would not be able to just have a conversation with them, right? Unless they consume English content, they have a lot of contact with the English language in their private life, maybe use technologies that only work in English, watch movies in English, read books in English. You get what I mean, right? The education in school is not good enough, and that's why you have so many stereotypes with Germans that have such a crazy accent in English, right? We all know the memes. And talking about the memes, we do not say ja after every 2 sentences. Do not ask me where that came from, but we do not say ja after every 2 sentences, right? If anything, we say nein. It doesn't exist, right? So the general English skills, I would say, are not particularly high. I mean, you can already see that even when it comes to our politicians. When they speak English, that is not clean, and these people literally should need it for their job, right? And then when you go into the, and therefore if you go into the younger generations, it again really depends on how much personal contact they have with English, but simply because many people don't need to speak English, because it's simply they don't get in contact in their everyday life, right? They don't need it to buy stuff. They don't even need it for like movies or series because our synchronization or localization in Germany, the industry is quite freaking good, and we also therefore have pretty much all products localized, except maybe for stuff like indie games or something like that, right? Where they just don't spend the money on it. But even there, you often have like community translations, and then it still works. But I simply don't have a lot of reasons, and therefore the grade, the rank, right, the English rank is not particularly high for most people. And I think even as someone that I would say has a lot of contact with English, that speaks a lot of English, that has basically every freaking device that he owns in English, except when again some IP analyzing tool turns my games in German again, because why not? Except for that, I have a lot of exposure to English, and I still don't think that I speak English particularly accent free, super fluid, or in any way. I still have a lot of stumblers when it comes to vocabulary, and yeah. So that's like I think it's a misconception, because there are many people that do speak good English, but they are by far not representative for the average skill level of the average German population, of the average German citizen, right? It doesn't matter. Again, when it comes to old people, don't even try it, right? They would usually have to have a personal interest in English. And when it comes to the younger, it really comes down to what they consume, basically. Because in schools, it's not great. I mean, I just remember my school times, and that is not that far off in the past. I spoke around the 7th grade English with a less dialect than my teachers, right? The most English teachers that I've seen in my school career they all were the German stereotype, right? Where you have the pencil case and stuff like that. And well, what can I say? I mean, that's just it might get better with having more younger teachers that hopefully can also speak halfway decent English. But on the other hand, we have quite a lot of troubles when it comes to the just sheer number of teachers that we have, so that might negatively compensate for that as well. So yeah, German is as well a great language, and no, I don't think there are that many Germans that actually speak English properly. I think understanding and even writing is a different topic, but I think when it comes to like speaking the language, it's always a little bit different, right?
So if your primary goal is to shock natives in Germany, you should learn Turkish. But German is still worth learning. Whether
Or any
you want
kind
to
of
dress up
Arabian
and go to
language.
Oktoberfest with the girlies, listen to some mountain yodeling, drive 500 miles an hour on the Autobahn, or kick back and relax while watching 10 hours of Was ist dein Lieblingsfach, Lieblingsfach, Lieblingsfach. German has a lot to offer.
Okay, for real, I have no clue what this is supposed to be. I don't know if that's like a German meme for foreigners or something like that. This does not exist. I have never seen this picture. I have never heard that song. Maybe it's a school song from other states. Maybe, don't know. But by the way, that fucking creeps me out. That god awful face, dude.
German has a lot to offer. And the best part is that the language is very unified. Everyone speaks with the same accent and dialect in every part of the German-speaking world. Said no one ever. Trying to learn about all the different accents and dialects in German was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
Harder than every engineering class I took, and even harder than when I gave birth. They've got so many different ways to classify all of the dialects that I almost died trying to make sense of all of these maps.
Yeah, fun with maps.
Died trying.
But it's so great. I think the funniest part with most of our dialects is that usually when you look at maps like this, and you see like different dialects, you can very often see the remnants of past duchies and areas from barons and the areas that noble houses had back in the day and all that stuff, right? Because we were very splintered in the past, right? And it's actually quite interesting to look at maps like this, and it's like you have all these little areas here, and it's quite crazy. And honestly, half of these traditional dialects you do not understand as a German. Holy freaking no, right? We're making fun of Bavarians, right? Especially simply because everybody thinks that Germans are somehow all Bavarians, but Bavarian is already a thing if you have like an old Bavarian grandpa speaking to you. You do not understand what he's saying, right? But it's the same with many of these other dialects in our country, where simply the grandpa of a old classmate spoke Plattdeutsch, flat German, translated, right? It should be somewhere here, I guess. Whatever. The point is, I did not understood a single word what he is saying. Literally, not a single freaking word. If they had told me, it's like that their family are originally coming from, I don't know, Scandinavian country, and that is what he is currently speaking, I would have believed it immediately. And you will find a lot of these dialects. Luckily, they are all dying out. What is still kind of sad, but you know, for the purpose of languages where it's quite important to understand each other,
to make sense of all of these maps.
Yeah.
But in general, Swiss German sounds like someone is hiccuping while riding a donkey, and they say merci instead of danke for some reason.
That's not true. Swiss German, or Schweizerdeutsch, as we like to call it, is first and foremost just very cute. Whatever they do, they just sound cute. We might not understand what they are saying, but they sound cute.
Austrian German sounds like how someone from Alabama would speak German. They also have the most manly, giga-chad, hillbilly-sounding dialect in the region where the former governor of California is from. Then Germany, oh.
To be fair, I would have liked to have some examples in that regard, because his only example as a person was a dude, Arnold Schwarzenegger, that just lived for how many decades already in America? Like, if you're living so long in a foreign country, you do not keep like a native German tongue anymore. You will have the accent from the foreign country that you're in. So I don't know. I don't know if that was like a
Oh
good
god, there's
example.
so many, and it's hard to wrap your head around without immersing yourself in German culture. Before I go
Yes.
down that rabbit hole, if you want to learn German or any other languages, the best way to do so is through full immersion, which can be made very convenient online with the sponsor of today's video. Okay, dialects in Germany. Buckle up. There are two major overarching dialects of the language in Germany. They're called Low German and High German. And I hate this distinction because Low German is spoken high up on the map and High German is spoken lower.
No, not really. So the thing is, Low and High German has first and foremost just something to do with the height of the environment, right? That's why on top it's a Low German, because that's just very close to the height of the ocean, the ocean level, right? Same with, for example, the Netherlands, for example, right? They're literally called Netherlands, right? In German, Niederlande, basically lowlands, because that's where they are, right? They don't have mountains or stuff like that. And High German is simply, well, that's where the fucking mountains are, right? So I don't know if there's really that distinction. In general, we have Standard German, right? Which is called Hochdeutsch, High German, if you would translate it literally. But you usually just use the word Standard German because it makes more sense. And then you just have dialects around you, right? And then you just have dialects all around you, right? People that are speaking German in that area don't speak the same way German, like people in Berlin, for example, or people in Saxony, or again Bavaria, for example, or closer to France or whatever, right? It's basically just you have Standard German, just the thing that people kind of want to be able to speak, just to be able to converse with everyone else that speaks German, right? And then you just have dialects attached to it around you, all in the country, right? So yeah, I'm not sure where he has these two things from, because again, even in that area, you have so many dialects. You have just you have seen it in the one map that I have stopped somewhere here. That's not like a good distinction to make, I think.
It makes zero sense. There's also Middle German, but no one pays attention to that.
Again, that's just height level.
High German, or Hochdeutsch, is the standard German spoken on.
Yeah, but it's again spoken basically everywhere in the best case. Actually, Hochdeutsch, Standarddeutsch. I think he has a translation error in here, where he maybe confuses the height levels of the country with like the Hochdeutsch, because that is what it's translated, right? Maybe he has like a twist in there. But actually, Hochdeutsch, Standard German, is actually mostly spoken in the middle of German. I feel the further you go outward from Middle German, the more you have people that are a little bit slacking when it comes to speaking German without a dialect, right? So I think he has some weird little twist in here.
Television that's forced into
Due to
students' minds
mistranslation.
all around the world. Within High German, there's a dialect called Bavarian, which they might as well just call Austrian. Also, there's Alemannic, which is a
I mean, Bavarian and Austrian are very different. Like real Bavarian, if they go all out with their dialect, the biggest difference between Bavarian and Austrian is that Austrian I can still understand. Bavarian, no chance, right? So, yeah. And Alemannic, I'm curious where that comes from. Is that Schweizerdeutsch? Is that a Swiss German? Because of the, is that a Swiss cross? Don't crucify me for that. I don't know. On the other hand, Alemannic should be close to French because that's what we are called in French. If I'm remembering correctly, we are the Alemans or something like that. So, is it like French-German mix / Swiss German? Don't understand why there is an ammo.
Adorable and spoken by
An
kind
emo.
hillbillies who make their words sound adorable. One subdialect
Yeah,
of Alemannic
Swiss
is
German.
called Baddish, and it is by far the greatest and most beautiful dialect of any language in the world.
I really want to look that up, but I'm not sure if I've ever heard of Badisch before this video.
Middle
honestly.
German is quite forgettable, except for Saxon, which sounds like how cartoon characters speak, and it's spoken.
Yeah, so the fun part with the Saxon that is, I think if I remember correctly from surveys, the number one most unattractive sounding dialect that we have in German, right? First. And if I remember correctly, I think Shailili, the VTuber, also comes from Saxon. But she doesn't have the dialect as much as as far as I can tell. From the very few moments that she spoke German for a while, she has quite good standard German / Hochdeutsch.
In this region,
So,
that's basically the Florida of Germany. Low German is spoken by fishermen,
Kinda
and
true.
it's basically a completely different language. But unfortunately,
wasn't that just the flag of the Netherlands? Ooh, slow-mo. Isn't just the flag of the Netherlands?
all of these dialects are slowly dying due to TikTok standardizing the accents of the German youth. Now,
Dude, the stuff that people speak on TikTok, this is literally killing all of German, right? This is like, in German we'd call it Assi-Deutsch, asocial German, right? Basically like ghetto German or uneducated German, but not like in a cool way, more like in the dumbass type of association that we have with that. So, yeah, whatever you hear in terms of German on TikTok, except for like education channels or whatever, right? For like foreigners, a lot of people that you see on TikTok that you just do pop culture stuff or the average stuff, you will very often hear not very standard German in these videos and clips.
Now let's talk about
Just
the
to make
alphabet.
it sure.
The German language uses a stolen version of the American alphabet.
And that's wrong. That's actually interesting, because that's plain and simply wrong. And I don't know where you had it from, because that's not how we say our alphabet, for the most part at least, right? It's like A, B, C, D, E. That's not how we say that, right? It's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. E, Ö, Ü. And that is just an S. So, yeah, like the gay from the G or the B, C, D, that's not how we say it. And we also don't say upsilon. We don't say oopsie, upsilon. That's not how we say it, right? So I don't know where he has that table from, but it is not. If you start saying the alphabet like that, probably people will think that you're retarded or something like that. So, don't.
Alphabet, which in this
Please.
case is fine. We stole the hamburger from them, so now we're even. But a few
What do you mean even? It's not even the English alphabet, dude. It's the Latin one. What?
100 years ago, the Germans added a new letter as DLC into the language, and I must admit, it's awesome. It's called the Eszett, and it makes a sharp S sound, but it looks like an uppercase B that's open for business. After a minute, I see the letter 3 with emo hair, and after a half hour, I see the top half of a beautiful pregnant woman.
Obviously, what else would you associate with a letter that looks like this? So, the Eszett, as I said a few seconds ago, is basically just an S sound, and it is completely obsolete. There's no reason that this letter exists in the first place, because you can just write 2S instead of the SZ. There's no reason to have the sound. But the problem is with the SZ is that no other language is using that thing, as far as I know at least. So, if you have a name, for example, that has an SZ in it, you will have issues with anything that happens internationally, right? If you have like a package coming from fucking China, they will put a fucking B in that place very often. Believe me. I went through that a few times. But no, for real. The SZ is completely useless. I think it looks cool. I give him that. But it is not an awesome letter because it literally has no reason to exist in the first place. Everyone who just writes words with a double S instead of the SZ, everyone knows what this word is still supposed to be. It doesn't change anything. So yeah, most useless letter in our alphabet. One of them.
And the Swiss don't use this letter, and I can't think why that would be.
Because nobody.
So they must just hate pregnant women. But admittedly, it looks really out of place in words. Like, it just doesn't look like it belongs there, and it sticks out like an American tourist in Europe. And the Germans commit the egregious sin of tainting our wonderful vowels by adding nostrils on top of a few of them. They're called umlauts, and they can be...
Yeah, first and foremost, it's not umlauts, it's umlaute. And, yeah, I mean, they're just different sounds. They have even purpose.
Used to change the sound of the vowel or distinguish between two otherwise identical words. Like this means humid, while this means gay.
Quite important. The difference between schwül and schwul. Yeah. Schwül and schwul, two different words. Wouldn't recommend to randomly mix them up. Might get you into some misunderstandings.
Like the letter is pronounced gay. For some reason...
Yeah, I've already explained that it's not pronounced gay.
They pronounce the W's with a V sound, like in the word Welt, and they pronounce the V's with an F sound, like in the word Vermögenszuordnung, Zuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung.
Awesome. So, he had one thing wrong, and that is actually the first part, where he says that W's are pronounced like a V. The fact is, V's are pronounced like W's, and V's are pronounced like F's. Our V does not have its own sound, making it another useless letter in the German alphabet. Right? And it's also a big problem because you have just a bunch of words where you as a kid that just learns how to write German, well, you just have to learn which words get the V and which words get an F or a W, right? So you have, for example, words like German bird, right, which is Vogel, which sounds like an F but is written with a V. Or, different example, the word Vase, for example, is I think one of the words that many kids stumble upon. Is also written with a V, but is spoken like a W, right? So we could technically completely trash the V as well, right? It would make perfect friends with our SZ, and nobody would miss it. Well, at least after a few years. So
in the word
this is that.
And they pronounce the V's with an F sound, like in the word Vermögenszuordnung, Zuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung. God.
Ich liebe diese Wörter. I love these words. They are so great. Yeah. Vermögenszuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung. Isn't that awesome? We just stick nouns together.
God, that word is so beefy like my massive biceps.
Yeah.
German words can get really big and long, the way
Let's
they use
go.
black magic to combine tons of nouns into one word. But these compound words are very logical, and they can be best demonstrated with the names of animals. This is a little sea pig. This is an stink animal. This is a lazy animal. This is a goldfish. Shit, we do that too. This is
In fact, you do that too, right? In fact, you could just do it, right? Like, it's something that you can technically do with every language, more or less. So, and in fact, you do that as well. And he even had an example right at the start. Yeah. We call it Meerschweinchen, Meerschweinchen, and in English you called it a guinea pig, right? And as far as I understood, the name comes from Guinea, Papua, New Guinea, something like that. And that's, as far as I understood, is where that animal got his name from. And what you did in English is just you took the name of the country where it apparently comes from, took what it reminds you of, and smashed it together. Guinea pig. Maybe it's not from the country, but you at least have like a word in front of the pig, right? So you already have. You do the exact same thing, right? You just don't do it as often, and you just make up new words.
animal. This is a lazy animal. This is a goldfish. Shit, we do that too. This is a spike pig. This is a Nile horse. And this is a flying object.
Dude, Zeug is such an awesome word. This right here. Because it's just thing. Zeug is just thing. Right? And the crazy and the great thing about thing, or in German, Zeug, is that you can just combine it with everything. And everybody understands what you mean, right? We have the Flugzeug, flying thing. We have the Fahrzeug, drive thing. We have the Spielzeug, which is the play thing. And we have many of these words, and it's just great because everybody understands what you mean, and everybody's like, it's just a great way to have an umbrella term that everybody understands. I mean, come on. Isn't that efficient, right? Just German efficiency, even in the language. Nobody can say that a language does not shape the attitudes of the people in the country that speak that language. Nobody.
Both American and German are Germanic languages, but American was tainted by French influences. German stayed true to its roots and still use crazy medieval-sounding Dungeons and Dragons words. German is scary. Why does it sound so angry? They're always screaming. I'm afraid. I'm sure y'all have seen those videos where they show how soft and cute a word sounds in different languages, and then they literally scream the word in German and act surprised when it sounds hostile and scary. Newsflash, beta males, every language sounds harsh when you scream in it. So yeah, haters of German.
So there's one thing in German that I do understand when people say that sounds aggressive, or at least it's not very nice to listen to, and that is because many German words are basically consonant massacres, right? It is not a very uncommon thing to have a word where you just have 3 or 4 consonants after another, right, with no vowel in between. And that sometimes creates sounds and words that I think many people don't necessarily like and might think that it sounds in any way aggressive or whatever. That might be the explanation for why that stereotype, I don't know, either that or just people hear us scream in most movies and therefore think that's just what we do. Usually Germans are just grumpy all day. We don't scream that much.
Are either brainwashed by that propaganda or they've only ever heard German at its absolute worst in World War II films. I personally love how
But
German
we have to be quite honest that his role in Inglourious Bastards, I think he does it incredibly well. Right, he is not screaming in his role, as far as I know. He is talking very eloquently, very normal. he plays that role incredibly good. I'm not sure what the name was of the character, but Christoph Waltz did an incredible job. Austrian, by the way, as far as I know.
I personally love how
Not
German
German.
sounds, and I've always been super intrigued by its pronunciation. It has a soothing and charming, yet dominant and masculine melody to it. The R sound is complicated, but
I mean,
at least
I'm
you don't need to
biased.
roll it in this case. There's just one.
But the R sound is not complicated. No, the R sound is not complicated. It's just like in most other languages as well. It just I mean the English the English R is certainly more beefy, right? You have like jr, right? But I mean, if I would just speak it in German, German, ger, it's meh. I think we have worse sounds, like for example the ch, which can be sh, or h. So the sh is not that hard. I think most people don't have that much issue with that sound, but I think many people have issue with the h sound, which for example is in words like Dach, right? Roof in English, Dach, and ch is in words like Mädchen, girl, right? Mädchen, Dach. It sounds a little bit harsh if you hold it for a longer time, but I think those are more like the type of sounds that people have quite issues with, besides simply to drop like this beefiness, this roundness of like, for example, English. Right, in German we are like we have like a very baseline pronunciation of our words. Makes sense, right? We say, again, just take the word German, right? We would just say German, right? And in English you have like this in everything that you say. You have like it's like more fluid, while in German it's more like staccato in a sense. It's more like choppy, but very precise. We don't take ways around any kind of sound. We just pronounce the sound and move on to the next, right?
Noise that's notoriously hard for foreigners to make, and it's the ch sound,
Yeah,
like in the
okay.
word ich, meaning I. It's
Yeah.
not and it's not sh,
As I said right now, it can be
and it's not sh. It's somewhere in the middle. To
ich.
say it, pretend you're a snake and slither on the floor until you feel German.
Yeah.
Then make the noise. Ick. But honestly, just say ick. All the cool people in the north half of Germany say ick instead of ich, and it's easier and more hipster. If you struggle to pronounce something in
it is part of the Berliner, the Berlin accent dialect. And I mean, people will understand what you mean, right? That's not a big issue. But well, the problem is, I talked about like the ghetto German, the quote unquote uneducated German type of dialect. The problem is Berlin has that kind of reputation among many Germans. So if you would start to speak Berliner-ish, you might sound stupid / more uneducated to many other people. Not trying to fuck with the Berliners in the country, but come on, guys, you know the reputation of your own city. Let's
German,
be
just
honest.
make up your own pronunciation. Chances are there's some random village dialect where people say it like you anyway.
That's
German
true.
speakers do this weird thing where they capitalize all of the nouns in their sentences. It's pretty quirky, but it doesn't really do much. Some people say it helps the brain read faster, but I think it's funny to imagine that Germans wouldn't be able to understand.
I mean, you can't tell me that if you even do it in English, right? Sometimes if you have like important words or stuff like that where you just capitalize them. even if it were not necessarily correct grammatically. You have that like in titles, for example, very often, stuff like that. And honestly, just having words like nouns capitalized, it helps a little bit. It's like it takes a little bit of load from your brain, just makes it easier to read. And considering how some of our sentences look, that is very useful.
Really do much. Some people say it helps the brain read faster, but I think it's funny to imagine that Germans wouldn't be able to understand their own language if.
No, of course we would understand our language still, right? In fact, we have to, because half of the youth just slept in German class, I guess, and just does not understand how capitalization or, well, punctuation works anymore. But, yeah, of course we would still understand what they are saying. Usually. Sometimes you have a little bit like with the Umlaute, where depending on what you use, it might actually change the meaning of the sentence. But usually you understand what they mean, right? If not from the sentence itself, then usually from the context around it. But it just makes it easier. It's really just that easy.
The
Just
nouns
nicer to
weren't
read.
capitalized. Germans just love arbitrary rules, so their grammar can also get a little complex. The language has 3 genders for nouns: masculine, feminine, and neuter, which each.
Ooh, that's a big topic. In fact, it's a big topic that I wanted to speak about in the Dragon Age Veilguard gender speech video that I made a few weeks ago. But every time I spoke about it, it filled at least half an hour just to explain the basics of our nouns and how the sex, we have to be very honest, it's not gender, it is the sex, because that's what these are meant to signal, because non-binary was not really a thing back in the day. And it is more complicated because we technically have 2 forms of that, which is the genus and the sexus, while the genus is word specific, where especially the article, what we have in front of words, is specific to each word, right? There's no rule that tells you what article you would use for the word. We then also have the sexus, which is then used for personal nouns, right? Like where the sex might matter. For example, teacher, right? We have a male teacher, Lehrer, female teacher, der Lehrer, male teacher, der Lehrer, female teacher, die Lehrerin, and then technically when you just, that's the neuter version, if you just talk about Lehrer or teacher as a job, for example, and you don't talk about a specific person, you just say Lehrer without an article, usually. It is complicated and I will not explain it. And
correspond to one of the 3 definite
pain in the
articles.
ass. Yeah, for example. Again, these are the articles that we have, and we have more of them, by the way. It is just so much easier to just have the the in English than having different articles. Yeah, I will not explain it.
Der, die,
I will
and
just
das.
not.
But there's a glitch that caused girls to be neuter for some reason. And German.
Yeah, nope. That's exactly what I mean with the. That's exactly what I mean with the. That's exactly what I mean with the genus, because this is not personalized, but it's just Mädchen, girl is just a category, right? It is not something. It's not a profession of a person, or is not a person, or anything that is like they're directly connected to a living human being, and it's just girl as a category. It is one of the genus words, but it just have random ass articles in front of it. We have, for example, stone has the male article in front of it, not because he has a dick and some freaking balls attached somewhere, but just it is just how it is, right? The sun is die Sonne. It has the female article, quote unquote, the female article, but it's not the female article because it's just a random fucking article that you have to learn for each and every fucking word. That is, by the way, also the reason why many immigrants just say de, also der, right? They don't say der Stein or die Sonne. They just say the Stein, the Sonne. They basically they basically use the Germanized version of the English the, right? You don't have the sound, you just have the. What is, by the way, also part of some dialects that we have in German as well. So that is again one of these points where if you would just use it, you might as well just come from some corner of the country. So yeah. But yeah, this is complicated, and I cannot be mad at him that he does not, as a beginner, right, that he did not catch that. It is literally something that many, many Germans do not understand themselves. What is one of the reasons why a lot of that gender speech stuff even happens in the first place. Because Germans don't understand their own language. Yay.
Reason. And German still has an annoying and archaic case system. They have 4 cases, which means that each noun can take up to 8 different forms in a sentence. Take a look at the word Welt, for example. Oh wait, they're all the same. Okay, this is easier than Russian, but the
it's not that easy. It kind of depends on the word, and it is more about the pronouns, actually, most of the time, and there we have a lot of complexity that actually nobody needs. But it's part of the language, so you have to understand it. Whoever poor person really wants to learn it.
cases are really bad with the personal and possessive pronouns.
Here we
Why
go.
can ihr be the second person plural nominative pronoun, the third person feminine dative pronoun, the third person feminine possessive pronoun, the third person plural possessive pronoun, and the second person courtesy possessive?
First and foremost, be happy that it is 5 times the same word. I rather take that than having to learn 5 different words. Just saying.
Pronoun. How do you keep track of that? Something I love, though, is how they often put verbs at the end of the sentences because it builds so much suspense.
That's not necessarily true. You could just write a sentence differently. I mean, then it would be in a different case, but aren't you doing that? So, I mean, we can just say those sentences differently. We can just say, ich aß das Buch. Where you would take that word, put it in a different case, put it in here, delete everything else, and it would still have pretty much the same meaning. It has not, because it's a different case, but
you have to wait for the verb,
whatever.
and I'll give you an example of what it would be like in American so that you can understand. I want innocently in a McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m. with your mom under the glowing moonlight while it's raining and the frogs are croaking and the grill's a sizzling to dance. Now it's time to talk.
Yeah, again, you can do that, but many people will hate you for doing that. So you would just use the version where you just have the first sentence and then add all the adjectives at the end. Not to mention that you can do the same in English or not.
Talk about shock factor. How will German speakers react to you speaking their language as a foreigner? To be honest, this is really not a language you learn to impress native speakers. If you speak German to a German and they smell even a milligram of an accent or hesitation coming out of your mouth, they'll switch to American. You could be the most Indonesian who only speaks Indonesian and German, but if you say Einschwester instead of eine Schwester, they'll think you're American and
I can tell you right away that is not true. I think in many cases you have like 3 options. Either the Germans are just pissed because they expect you to not understand what they are saying. Right? These are like the Germans that only speak German, which I spoke about at the start. Second is really they just switch to English. Or the third is just they ask you. Actually not. I think most people would not ask you if you understand German if you just make such a minor mistake. It is more like if you're really stumbling, then I think some people might ask you if you can speak English as well. Yeah, that's, I think, usually the things that might happen to you.
Switch to Biden language. But if you switch to American as a crutch in an emergency situation, they might pretend they don't speak American. You'll never catch a German doing a backflip or convulsing over a foreigner speaking their language, but at least they won't get super mad and toxic like the French. But don't get...
Oh, you have no idea. Germans can be really toxic. It's more like grumpy toxic.
Get me wrong, Germans will get mad for other reasons. Like if they catch you even thinking about jaywalking, they'll call the GSG-9 federal police, and those dudes will deport you faster than you can say Abfell. Nah,
Special forces of the police, yeah.
but for real, Germans are really nice people, and they'll appreciate the effort you're making to learn their lingo, and they'll be quick to help you. But if you want
That's
to
true.
linguistically shock someone in Germany, learn Turkish, Türkçe öğreniyorum. As always, there's so much more I could say about BMW language, but you're probably sick of me, so it's time to give German an official language simp certified rating on the Simp scale. On a
Hey.
scale of Dogwater to GigaChad, I place German solidly in the alpha tier. I genuinely love the way it sounds, and it's relatively easy for a Native American speaker.
Yeah, as I said, there was clearly a tier missing called Übermensch, but
But the little to no shock factor
what can I
kind
say?
of brings it down a little for me. I just like shocking natives and
He's just
filming them
learning.
without their permission way too much. At least trying to speak German in Germany isn't as useless as trying to speak Dutch in the Netherlands. Let me know.
Is that so? And why is that so? Now I'm curious. Do Dutch not speak Dutch? Or is it like occupied by English and German and French and from all these surrounding countries?
Which language I should review next in the comments. Do svidania. Newsflash, beta.
Like, come on, at least end the video in German. Sag Wiedersehen or Tschüss, or I mean, you could even go with English bye-bye or something like that. I don't know. So, I think overall an interesting video. I liked many of the jokes, but he had clearly some oopsies in here, which were not super true, right? Which is not bad, right? Again, I just thought that I would just explain them. That's what I did, and I think that's absolutely fine. Again, overall very cool. I want to know, are people interested in me doing more videos about the language or Germany in general? Are people interested in that? If not, feel free to watch something else. Maybe another of my videos as well. And besides that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see us again at some point in the future. Until then, see ya.